for the K Street Transitway Project Semi-Final Design Virtual Public Meeting. My name is Ann Harrell, and I will be your facilitator for this evening. This meeting will start in a few minutes. We'll allow a few minutes for others to join us. Thank you for your patience. We look forward to presenting this evening. Good evening. Thank you again for joining us. We're allowing just another 2 minutes, and then we will begin. Good evening again. We thank you for joining us for the K Street Transitway Project semi-final design virtual public meeting. And before we dive into the presentation, I would like to review a few meeting reminders. First, this meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the K Street Project website and Ddot's YouTube page. It is also being streamed on Ddot's Facebook page. If you need technical assistance during the meeting, please contact Molly Burns at 202-309-3491. Her information will also be placed in the chat. Next slide, please. To ensure that the meeting flows smoothly and we get a chance to hear from everyone, please follow the following guidelines. Please try and save all questions to the Q&A portion of the meeting. You may request to speak by either typing your name in the Q&A or raising your hand. This feature will be reviewed momentarily. You may also enter your comments and questions in the Q&A. Please be respectful to others and keep your speaking time to no more than 1 minute so other community members may also share their feedback. Next slide, please. During the meeting, you will not be able to unmute yourself. You will have an opportunity to speak during the Q&A period. Our team will unmute you if you wish to speak. If you want to speak, you may either raise your hand or type your name in the Q&A. You will not be able to share your video during this meeting. Only those who are panelists and presenters will be able to share their videos. Next slide. If you have a question during the presentation, please send it via the Q&A feature. If you are using the WebEx meeting application, click the three dots in the bottom right side of the WebEx window and select Q&A. In the Asks field, select All Panelists. Click the text box to type your question and press the Enter key to send it. If you joined via a browser or mobile app, click the question mark icon to access the Q&A to ask a question. We will do our best to answer all of your questions during the Q&A portion of the meeting. However, if we do not get to your question during this meeting, we will respond shortly thereafter. Next slide, please. If you'd like to verbally ask your question or to comment, please use the raise hand feature to raise your hand. Click the participants icon on the bottom right of the WebEx window. Once the new window appears, click on the small hand icon towards the bottom of the panel window. If you are dialing in, please use *3 to raise your hand. If you have joined via browser or a mobile app, click the three-dot icon and select Raise Hand. I will now turn the presentation over to Wayne Wilson, Ddot Project Manager for Project Team Introductions.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Wayne Wilson, and I'm with the District Department of Transportation, or Ddot. I am the Ddot Project Manager for the K Street Transitway Project. This evening, we'll be presenting the 65% design for the project. Ddot and the consultant teams are eager to hear your feedback and the efforts that have been made by the department and the team to progress the project forward. Next slide. With us today, we have Robin Jackson, the Deputy Program Manager for Wards 1 and 2, Hunte Kim, the Program Manager for Ward 1 and 2, Ann Harrell from Justice, Sustainability and Associates, Jerry Baxter from JMT, Adrian Amiel from Kinley Horn of DC, and Adrian McCrae from Lee and Associates. Now I hand it over to Jerry.
Thank you, Wayne. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm excited to be working with Ddot on this project and looking forward to talking with you this evening. We will provide a project overview and present details on key project elements. The primary objectives of the project are transit improvements, bicycle facilities, curbside management, which is how the curbside space is utilized, and streetscape enhancements to the corridor. We also provide an overview of next steps and what you can expect to happen relative to the project. Finally, we'll have a question and answer period where you'll be able to provide comments. Public involvement is a key part of any Ddot project, and I want to emphasize that the project team is eager to hear your input on the project. Before we get into the what about the project, I'd like to give a little background on the why for the project. This project is in line with MOVE DC, which is the District of Columbia's long-range transportation plan. This plan establishes goals, policies, strategies, and metrics for Ddot to invest in transportation projects and programs that address the needs of Washingtonians across all 8 wards. I've noted on the screen the 7 goals of the MOVE DC program, and the K Street Transitway is a project that addresses every one of these goals. The first goal is safety. Safety is a primary objective in all Ddot's projects, consistent with Mayor Bowser's Vision Zero initiative. Safety improvements are being incorporated into the project, including median refuges and shorter pedestrian crossings, all-day left turn restrictions and reductions in pedestrian vehicle conflicts, separating bus and vehicular traffic, and providing cycle tracks, which are separated from motor traffic and the sidewalk. Mobility will be enhanced through increased system reliability, improved accessibility, and better transit system performance. Management and operations is ensuring a good state of repair for the significant investment Ddot is making in the project. We are also designing with maintenance considerations in mind and coordinating with local stakeholders. The project is being designed to be accessible, safe, and welcoming. Our project team is working to create a sense of place to create enjoyable spaces along the corridor. Equity will also be enhanced by the project. Transit services are vital to historically under-resourced communities and those with the greatest need. This project will enhance these services, and these improvements being made in the downtown core will positively impact the entire region. It is worth noting, while metro trips declined 90% in March 2020, metro bus trips only dropped 60%. Transit is a critical resource for many people in the community. Project delivery is a commitment to deliver the project on time, on budget, while engaging the community. Today is one piece of that process, and I'll highlight others later in the presentation. Last is the focus on sustainability. Enhanced transit usage brings environmental benefits. In addition, our project includes green infrastructure, which will be addressed later. The Transitway will be located in downtown along K Street between 21st Street and 12th Street, which includes 3 parks, Farragut Square, McPherson Square, and Franklin Park. The project area includes a high-density commercial development with needs for unloading as well as passenger drop-off. The corridor experienced a high volume of transit users, with multiple bus stops along the corridor and the Farragut North Metro Station at Connecticut Avenue. The corridor also experienced a high volume of pedestrian activity. It is also understood that this is a tree-lined corridor with an abundance of trees. All these factors were taken into consideration for the final design for the project. The Transitway will span 11 blocks, and while no 2 blocks are the exact same, the typical section shown on the screen provides the general layout that will be carried through the project. The project limits are from building face to building face, but delivery of the transit lanes is the primary goal of the project, so the majority of the work is from curb to curb. First, the existing service lanes on K Street will be removed. This configuration is outdated and inefficient, which leads to congestion along the corridor. There is a high potential for pedestrian and vehicle conflicts in this configuration, and it will be reduced. The proposed layout was developed considering the district goals, the local area, and the site conditions, including available right-of-way. As shown on the screen, in the center of the roadway will be 2 separated transit lanes, one going in each direction for buses. Adjacent to these lanes will be medians. The bus stops and platforms will be located in these medians. Next to these medians will be one-way cycle tracks, which will be separated from both transit lanes and the general travel lanes. Between the cycle tracks and the travel lanes will be a narrow median. On the outside will be 2 travel lanes in each direction. In some blocks, where there is sufficient right-of-way, loading, pickup drop-off, and parking areas will be provided. These locations are between 21st Street and 17th Street and at the eastern end of the corridor. We'll provide a block-by-block breakdown later in the presentation. The roadway widths do become constrained at the 3 parks along the corridor. At these locations, the sizes of the medians adjacent to the transit lanes will be reduced as shown on the screen. However, the number and types of different travel lanes through the corridor will be maintained. This project has been in the works since before 2009. Any project of this magnitude will go through an environmental assessment according to federal standards, which was completed in 2009. Mayor Bowser identified this project as a mayor's initiative in 2018. Since this time, this project has been a major focus for Ddot. Preliminary design was completed 2 years ago, and the team began final design last year. This project also includes outreach and public meetings. As part of the environmental assessment, there was a public meeting with comment period in 2009. Since the project was reinitiated after the mayor's announcement in 2018, there has been an open house in Farragut Square. There has also been, and will continue to be, meetings with key stakeholders, such as advisory neighborhood commissions, ANCs, and business improvement districts, BIDs. One item that already come from the public engagement was the inclusion of center running bicycle lanes in the project. Stakeholder coordination is a key part to project success. The project team has been working actively with the BIDs and ANCs to receive their input on the project. A sample of other key stakeholders are also shown on the screen. As you may know, or would probably guess, there are an abundance of utilities underground in this corridor. Utility coordination is a key project element, and this is an extensive and ongoing effort. The transitway will include 4 new stops per direction for a total of 8 platforms. Each platform is paired with one on the other side of the street. The project was developed based on providing connections with the transit network. This is part of an ongoing coordination effort between Ddot and WMATA, and the current plan is to incorporate at least 18 different routes on the transitway. The transitway will serve up to 60 buses per hour per lane during peak periods. Concurrent with the K Street project, other projects are in various stages for the north-south streets that are either in the 2022 budget or proposed in the mayor's 2023 budget. This project is looking at the entire network with their improvements. The platform design is a major focus of the project, considering accessibility, operations, and a sense of place. Platforms will be 11 feet wide and include amenities such as shelters, leaning rails, trash and recycling receptacles, real-time travel information, and landscaping. The platforms will be designed to be compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA. The platforms will be elevated 10 inches from the roadway surface, which is higher than the standard curb height of 7 inches. This will allow for near-level boarding. The length of the platform has been designed to accommodate 2 articulated buses at the same time. In addition, landscape and design features are being developed to create a sense of place at the shelter. The goal is to create prominent, welcoming platforms. Access to the platforms will be from the crosswalk, somewhat similar today, but with some improvements. Pedestrians will cross the crosswalk, and there will be new traffic signal equipment, including accessible pedestrian signals, which include audible messages. At the median will be a median tip, or essentially a raised curb at the intersection side of the median, as you should be able to see in the image on the screen. Median tips are consistent with the latest design guidelines for these applications. Detectable warning surfaces, or the bumpy patterns found at curb ramps, will be provided at the edge of the median tips to differentiate the median tip area from the travelway area. From the median tip, transit users would then turn and go up a ramp to the platform, with the intent being a smooth, seamless access. The transit lanes will be controlled by bus signals, similar to other locations in the district. The general traffic and bicyclists will follow traditional traffic signals. Based on the proposed typical section and elimination of left turn movements, the corridor will be able to operate very effectively and efficiently. The buses, bicycles, and general vehicles on K Street will be able to go at the same time, with few exceptions. At 19th Street and 13th Street, the buses will have a separate phase to exit the transitway. And at 12th Street, bicycle signals will be provided to separate bicycle phases from the general purpose movement. In addition to the signal phasing changes, there will be benefits to separating the buses from the travel lanes and general traffic. The issues created by mixing of buses and vehicles, parked cars blocking a bus, or a stopped bus blocking a right turning car, for example, will be eliminated. As you can see in the image on the screen, proposed travel times through the corridor will reduce for both vehicles and transit in both directions during both peak periods. This shows the time it takes to get from one end of the corridor to the other. The image on the left is for the eastbound direction, and the image on the right is for the westbound direction. The left column is the morning period, and the right column is the evening period. The gray boxes are the existing times, and the green boxes are the proposed times, with vehicles on top and transit on bottom. As you can see, all the green travel times are lower than the gray travel times above. The improvements being implemented by this project will reduce travel time for all users while adding access for another mode through the cycle tracks provided along the corridor. I will now hand it over to Adrian to talk more about bicycles, pedestrians, and other aspects of the project.
Thank you, Jerry. As Jerry just mentioned, although this project is mainly a transit project, this project includes safety improvements for both pedestrian and bicyclists. There will be wide, high visibility crosswalks that will be included at all intersections, which will improve safety for pedestrians. The new bike infrastructure will include 2 one-way cycle tracks, one on each side of the center running transitway, that is protected by a cement barrier that's approximately 2 feet wide, which is a significant improvement for bicycles along K Street. The cycle track will result in a significant safety and access improvements for bike travel across downtown. The only intersections where bikes will have to cross the general purpose vehicle lanes is at 12th Street. In order to ensure bikes can safely cross vehicle lanes, a bike signal will be provided at this location. On this slide, I want to point out first the legend. The bike movements are shown in green, transit movements are shown in pink, and the general traffic movements are shown in blue. To help with bike safety at the intersections, there will be 2 stage turn boxes provided for cyclists to safely transition from the cycle track to the adjacent bike infrastructure. As you can see from this example at 15th Street, westbound cyclists would wait to turn in the turn box for vehicles to stop, or would wait in the turn box for vehicles to stop along K Street and for the light to turn green at 15th Street to make the transition to the side street. Once the signal turns green, the bicyclist will proceed southbound. In the district's multimodal long-range transportation plan called Move DC, K Street was identified as a bicycle priority corridor. This project will complete a key segment of the bike priority network and connect to 20th Street cycle track, 17th Street protected bike lanes, 15th Street cycle track, 12th Street bike lanes, and 11th Street bike lanes. I'm now going to walk through the corridor design, starting from the western end at 21st Street and end at 11th Street. To be able to follow along, you can use the key map located on the lower left corner. Also for the legend, you can see meter parking is shown in blue, pink is accessible meter parking, green is commercial loading, and yellow is pickup and drop off. The green circle symbol is shown for the cycle track, the red circle is pointing to the bus stops, and the tree symbol are shown in green. The curbside uses currently shown on these graphics are based on multiple meetings and feedback that we receive from the public, the Golden Triangle Business Improvement District, and Downtown Business Improvement District. Development along K Street is always changing in this post-COVID environment. So these curbside uses are not final and are subject to change. So please provide feedback during the meeting if you have other comments or recommendations. Also, as part of a separate project, some minor curbside changes will occur on the side streets, adding pickup and drop off and commercial loading for buildings that curbside uses were removed along K Street. The trees and landscaping shown on these maps are dependent on utility conflicts that the project team are currently working through. So the trees may decrease in the future due to utility conflicts. I'm first now going to walk through 21st Street to 20th Street. This is where the transitway starts and buses merge into the center running lanes for eastbound buses, and for westbound buses, they exit the transitway. You can see the transitway center running median start here. The curbside uses shown on the south curb include pickup and drop off and commercial loading. At the 20th Street intersection, you can see connections between the K Street cycle track and the 20th Street cycle track. Now between 20th Street and 19th Street, this is the start of the cycle track and the first set of bus stops, which is closest to 19th Street. Pedestrians will be able to access the bus stops from the center routing medians as Jerry already went through in the slides previously. The bus zone is 130 feet long, which will be able to fit 2 articulated 60-foot buses along with the buffer. The curbside uses are only for the south side and include accessible meter parking, commercial loading, and pickup and drop off. Now 19th Street to 18th Street. One change from this block from the last slide is that the transitway introduces a westbound left turn lane. The team has been working closely with WMATA to determine bus routes through the transitway, and we anticipate some of the bus lines having to make a westbound left turn at this location. On the south side, you will see commercial loading, metered parking spaces, and pickup and drop off. Now between 18th Street and Connecticut Ave, on this block, we have the second set of bus stops located near Connecticut Avenue. Similar to the first set of bus stops, pedestrians will be able to access this bus stop using the center running medians. Curbside uses continue on the south side with metered parking, accessible metered parking, pickup and drop off, and commercial loading. Now, between Connecticut Avenue to 17th Street, you may notice a change on this block since the last public meeting. A second eastbound general purpose lane for vehicles was added to this block to help alleviate traffic and bottleneck concerns that were expressed by the public and business improvement districts. By adding this through lane, the sidewalk on the south side, close to Farragut Square, will now be 10 feet in width after this change. At 17th Street, you will see the cycle track connection with the protected bike lanes. There are no curbside uses on this block due to right-of-way constraints with Farragut Square. 17th Street to 16th Street, since there are no bus stops for this block, the medians will have landscaping and be 11 feet wide. The wide median is a safety benefit to separate the transitway from the cycle track. There are no curbside uses for this block due to the constrained right-of-way. 16th Street to 15th Street, this is the third set of bus stops close to 16th Street and the Black Lives Matter Plaza. Similar to the other bus stop locations, pedestrians will be able to safely access the bus stops with the ramps provided from the crosswalk to the bus stop. At this intersection of K Street and 15th Street, you'll see the cycle track connection with the 15th Street cycle track. There are no curbside uses on this block. 15th Street to Vermont, this is a fairly short block. There are no curbside uses on this block due to the constrained right-of-way with McPherson Square being to the south. The medians that separate the transitway and cycle track are narrow and approximately 2 feet in width. Vermont Avenue to 14th Street, this is the location of the fourth and final set of bus stops. Similar to the other bus stops, pedestrians will be able to access the bus stop with the center running protected medians. There are curbside uses on the south curb on the eastern end and include commercial loading, pickup and drop off, and accessible metered parking. 14th to 13th Street, there are no curbside uses on this block with a narrow center median of 2 feet due to Franklin Park on the south side. Something unique on this block is one of the eastbound general purpose vehicle lanes drop at 13th Street. Only one lane of eastbound traffic will be able to go through the intersection. 13th Street to 12th Street, due to constrained right-of-way, the eastbound general purpose lane only has one through lane. The striping at the intersection of 12th Street and K Street connects to the northbound bike lanes. There are curb extensions, bulb outs on each side of this block on the south side. This will help with pedestrian safety by reducing the pedestrian crossing distance. There are curbside uses on the south curb, which include pickup and drop off and commercial loading. 12th Street to 11th Street, this is a transitional block where buses will transition from the transitway to general purpose in the eastbound direction, and the westbound direction, buses will transition to the transitway using the center lane. There are no curbside uses on this block and no center medians. The bike lane striping connects to both the northbound and southbound bike lanes located at 11th Street. I'm now going to pass this off to Adrienne McCrae to talk about streetscape enhancements. Thanks.
Thank you, Adrienne. So in addition to the roadway and median improvements that Adrienne was talking about, the project is also going to be doing some sidewalk streetscape upgrades. And the goals for that is to really enhance the visual quality and experience for the users in the corridor. And the way that we're going to do that is we're looking at the material consistency through the hardscape, softscape, as well as the site furnishing. We also want this to be a green street by enhancing that existing canopy and providing new robust trees as well. We've been looking at accessibility concerns, and we're going to be improving some of the sidewalk cross slopes as well as the ADA ramps throughout the corridor. And then we're also supporting the opportunities for that outdoor amenity, which in turn will activate the public realm. And so as we continue, we'll reinforce that sidewalk zone that currently exists today by improving the consistency. We're starting with the tree pit zone, which is from the curb to the sidewalk. And here we're going to be preserving existing trees, providing new street trees. We'll be placing new Washington Globe Twin 20 lights fixtures in the corridor, and we'll be providing other furnishing as well. Here we're showing some of the Ddot standard furnishing, but we are working with the bids to integrate their furnishing standards in key areas. And we're also working with them to identify opportunities for public art to be incorporated. The sidewalk zone is from that tree pit zone to the back of the sidewalk. And our goal is to maintain a 20-foot clear sidewalk zone throughout the area. We realize there are going to be some places where there's some pinch points and it's not possible, but our goal is to maintain that wider sidewalk to support the higher levels of pedestrian volume. And then behind the sidewalk to the face of the building is that building amenity zone. And here's where property owners can permit with Ddot to provide various design elements that will help support the public space activation in front of their storefront. Next slide. The materials that we're proposing for the sidewalks are going to be standard hardscape materials that Ddot provides. And we'll be looking at the 2x3 London pavers through the sidewalk zone. But we're also looking at an alternative for port-in-place concrete as an alternative. The areas between the tree pit, along the tree pit zone, we are looking at a contrasting paver, which will be a smaller 4x8 concrete paver. And then we also realize that there are a lot of materials that exist throughout the corridor that have been installed by some of the property owners. And we're evaluating that, and all the materials that are there that are in good condition, we won't be removing. Some of the materials that have been installed by others but need some renovation work, we'll be working with those owners on a case-by-case basis. Next slide. So the existing street trees along the sidewalk are part of the amenity of the street and will be maintained as much as possible. So we've been evaluating the condition of the trees to determine if enhancements are needed to improve the health, and any new trees that we're planting along the sidewalks will match the character of that existing tree. And this will help reinforce our goal to provide a continuous canopy that offers changing visual interests through different times of the year. And so the existing medians throughout the corridor, since they're going to be removed, we'll be planting new trees in the medians. And as Adrian said, we'll be planting as much as possible, noting we've got a lot of utilities that we've got to kind of work around. Next slide. Next slide. In addition to the trees, the medians will be planted with hardy shrubs and ground covers. We've got two planting strategies for the medians. One is the at-grade planting, just standard, where the soil level is going to be at the height of the curb. And the second strategy is the low-impact development by a retention planter, where the soil level is slightly recessed, and that will allow the runoff from the roadways to be captured and filtered through the soil medium. And this will help our project meet the citywide green infrastructure and stormwater management goals. Next slide. I'm going to turn this over to Jerry now.
Thank you, Adrian. So the image on the screen provides the next steps and project timeline for the project. We started our design last year, and our project completed the intermediate design in February. We are now progressing towards final design, which is scheduled to be completed late this summer or early this fall. From that, a construction contract will be advertised, with construction estimated from 2023 to 2026. The estimated construction duration is 30 to 36 months, and the final design phase will include development of many of the details related to the construction of the project. It is also important to note an additional public meeting will be held concurrent with the final design. I will now hand it back to Anne, who will walk us through the Q&A portion.
Jerry, thank you. So as a reminder, before we jump in, we will now begin the Q&A portion. And as a reminder, please use the raise hand request to be unmuted to ask your question directly, or the Q&A feature to submit your comments or questions. We do have a number of great questions already in the queue. I would ask that you bear with us. Our goal this evening is to make sure that we get to as many questions as possible. And for the sake of time, we might not get to all of your questions this evening. Our plan is to do the Q&A up to 7:25 this evening, and then we will wrap for the evening, but we will definitely get back to you. The questions have been themed based on various topics, so we're going to not necessarily approach it in the order the questions have come in, but by the subject matter. So there's a first group of questions for Adrian Emil, and they're specific to the bicycling community. And I just want to make sure that Adrian is on camera. There she is. Okay.
Yes.
All right. The first question, why are the bike lanes in the middle of the street instead of being next to the sidewalk?
Thank you, Anne. I'm going to turn this over, I guess, Wayne, would you like to answer that question? I know you were part of the previous phase of this project.
Yes. So we did analysis doing the 30% design for either curb running bike lanes, which is typical in DCU, versus the center running bike lanes. With the amount of garages that we have, or vehicles entering garages, and the right-of-way constraints from the parks were changing, it was a discussion with WABA and other stakeholders to include the bike lanes in the center of the travelway, because they would offer a more protected space or experience for the riders.
Thank you. And let me know who might answer the next question, Adrian, if it's not for you. Were multi-lane protected bike lanes considered where there's a straight ahead lane and a turn lane near intersections, similar to what is on Pennsylvania Avenue?
Can you repeat the question one more time, just to make sure I
Sure.
understand?
Were multi-lane protected bike lanes considered where there is a straight ahead lane and a turn lane intersection, similar to what is on Pennsylvania Avenue?
I'm not sure if they can elaborate where on Pennsylvania Avenue exactly. I know George, go
Yeah,
ahead.
Adrian, can I jump in a minute? So
Yeah.
I think it's referring to, if you go down Pennsylvania Avenue, there's left turns there, left turn lanes. We have tried to accommodate that as best we have. This is a limited constraint right away. As you can see, we're trying to fit the transitway, the travel lanes, and the cycle lanes along with the buffers. What we were able to do is look to provide a slightly wider area at the intersection by reducing that buffer width slightly. So that is something we were considering to kind of provide whatever we can provide. But as far as having two full bicycle width lanes, I just don't think that's going to be possible to balance the other needs of the corridor. And if anybody else on the project team would like to chime in, please do.
Okay, not hearing a follow-up response, and I believe that answers a similar question that came from Randy Downs regarding the details about the widths of the bike lanes. The next,
We can answer that, the widths being 5 feet or 6 feet, depending on where you're at on the corridor. I just want to mention that tidbit of information.
thank you.
Adrian, can you bring up the typical section showing?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, let me walk you through this, and feel free, Hunte, to add on. But as you can see here, this is showing the 5-foot cycle track. In some cases, it does go to 6 feet. So it varies depending on where you are along the corridor.
Okay, the next comment and question. The only concern I have is that personally, I'd be pretty nervous to use those bike lanes since they're placed right in the middle of traffic. The similar ones in Pennsylvania Avenue are really uncomfortable, and turn boxes just feel extremely dangerous instead of turning with traffic like you would in a roundabout or traffic light. Has a consideration been made to move the cycle tracks behind the trees along the sidewalk? And thank you.
I believe we may have already answered this question of why it's in the center, but I don't know, Wayne, if you want to add any more to that response.
Yes. So internally at Ddot, we had this debate as well. because we do understand the natural tendency is to be curb running for our bicyclists. So we evaluated just because of the high turn volumes from garages and vehicles, and the ability of having a 11-foot median between the bus and an additional buffer between the cars, we selected the center. It is something that was a long debate, and we did a stakeholder meeting, we did public meetings about it, and we did reach out to WABA because we had the same concerns as well as center running versus curb running. And as I stated earlier, it was because of the high turn volumes as well as the changing right of way, where the bike will actually have to do some certain amount of maneuvers and shifts and push it closer to traffic. We just felt that the center running was the best option, the safest option, even though it's not prevalent in the city. It is something different. So we do understand the concern, but that's the reason why we went with center running.
I do also want to mention that there are no left turns for vehicles all day on this, so turning traffic is limited for safety reasons.
Thank you, Adrian. And for those who are submitting comments and questions, please understand for the questions are similar in nature, we might not touch upon. If you believe that we've missed your question, please let us know in the Q&A and we will return to that either this evening or after the meeting. Another question, again, speaking about bicycles. Is there anything that can be done to modify the turn boxes so that they're less exposed and safer?
That is definitely something we can look into. We understand they are close to the travel lanes, and we have talked internally as a team. So we'll definitely take a look and see what modifications we can make to see if there's some buffer we can provide for the cyclists.
Right. And Santiago said that this is likely for George or Wayne. Are there plans to extend the cycle track 2 blocks from 11th to 9th Street to reach the future 9th Street cycle track?
There's a question for George.
Yeah, sure. Hi, this is George Branyan with the Active Transportation Branch, and we work with Wayne and their team on a lot of things on this corridor. Yeah, it's on our list. We just connected, over to Mount Vernon Square on K Street through the Mount Vernon area. So we are looking at that. Again, it's a tighter right of way. To put something protected in there would have pretty big curbside impacts. So we are looking at that piece so that we can get this connection over to 9th because the 9th Street cycle track is moving forward to be constructed probably early next year. Good question.
Thank you, George. We're going to touch on 2 more questions regarding bicycles. Then we're going to speak to some other subject matter. The next question is the bike lane going to be raised such as Penn Avenue West designs are level with the road?
The bike lane is level with the protected bike lane cycle track is level with the road.
And there is a more complex question. I believe we've touched on it a bit, but I'm going to put it out there. How do you turn right when using the inner bike lane? Is there a traffic light that stops motor vehicle traffic so you can cross the 2 vehicle lanes? And I'm going to pause there because there's more to this particular question.
Can we pull up maybe that block, Nick, first? And Anne, can you just repeat that one more time, just so?
Sure. How do you turn right when using the inner bike lane? Is there a traffic light that stops motor vehicle traffic so you can cross the 2 vehicle lanes?
Got it. So that's why the turn box is provided here. So what you would do here is that you would use that cycle track and you would get to 17th Ave, as you can see from the arrow that's being pointed out, and you would pause there and wait for the vehicle traffic to stop. So there wouldn't be a separate bike signal for that. And then once it turns red, then you would be able to safely cross and make that right turn.
And the remaining questions are, does one position themselves? Well, I think you might have answered this. It's difficult to understand how to turn right when using the inside bike lane. Hopefully what Adrian's just described has answered your question, and this is for Bill Gallagher. If it's not, we're going to come back to your question. We do
Can
have
we show the two-stage diagram really quick that may answer it?
Yeah, we can go back to this and I'll point this out again. So as you can see, this kind of the two-stage turn box, which is a little bit confusing. So you see the westbound cyclists would go westbound and they would pause at that two-stage turn box until the light would turn green in the southbound direction. So you would have to pause and wait for that light to turn green. For the same as what vehicles would turn green, you would go the same time as vehicles would be able to go that southbound, as just showed on the screen, be able to go southbound here on 15th Street.
So hopefully that clarifies. And Mr. Gallagher, if you have a follow-up question to that, please post it in the Q&A. We'll respond. We're going to pivot for a moment and talk about bioretention environmental. Perhaps Adrian McCray would be the person. The first question is, will there be any rainwater bioswells included in the design? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. We are including some in some of the median areas.
Okay. And another question is the visual impact of plants, trees studied to make sure they are not blocking all modes views when turning?
Yeah, so the tree placement as we're coming to the intersections will be 40 feet away from those intersections to allow for the views around of the traffic that's coming into that intersection. As far as the ground cover, as we're getting into the intersection, we're planning to keeping our plant material at 2 foot maximum in those areas.
Thank you, Adrian. There's a housekeeping question regarding access to a copy of this presentation. I will mention it towards the end, but the presentation will be made available to the public on the project website by the end of next week. We have a sidewalk question, perhaps Adrian, for you again, Adrian McCray. So is the sidewalk being narrowed at Farragut Square? What is the existing sidewalk width?
So at Farragut Square, the existing width is probably roughly maybe 12 feet, but we are not going to be.
We can answer it.
Yeah, can I jump in there, Adrian?
Oh, sure.
Sorry. So I know I was kind of up on the details of that. So the existing sidewalk at McPherson is about 14 feet, and the proposed plan does take it down to 10 feet, which is the minimum sidewalk width. And just kind of looking at the two other squares, that will be consistent with Franklin, which has the 10 feet as well. And then McPherson actually is even less than that for whatever that is worth. But we are going from 14 to about 10, which we think still should give adequate sidewalk width while providing that key extra travel lane.
Thank you, Jerry. We do have an additional question that's environmental in nature. Will native or climate adaptation plans be used in the design?
Is that plants?
Yes.
Yes, so the plant materials that we are going to be incorporating are native and adaptive to our area, and very durable and have been used throughout the city and other places successfully.
Thank you, Adrian. We're going to pivot to another subject matter, traffic operations. Are there plans for automated enforcement cameras for private vehicles that enter the bus-only lane? Perhaps Britton? I don't know if Britton's on the call. Yes.
I can answer that actually. Right now, there's currently no plans for for enforcement or camera enforcement yet. Although I know that they're doing some pilot programs, I believe on some other corridors. So not saying that we can't add it in the future, but currently there is no plans right now to add the automated enforcement cameras for the transitway.
Hey, we also have Megan Kanagi from Ddot Bus Priority Team. Megan, do you have any other things to add?
Sure. Yeah, I can follow up on that. So Ddot is pursuing automated traffic enforcement for bus lanes and bus stop zones. We have a new contract that will be getting underway later this year that will include that type of automated enforcement as part of our camera enforcement program in the district, in addition to red light and speed and the other enforcement aspects that are ongoing. And so we will definitely be monitoring the operations of the K Street Transitway. I think one thing that's really a positive of this design is the center running protected transit lanes are going to be much easier for us to keep clear for buses. So I don't anticipate the enforcement being as big of a challenge here, but we will certainly keep an eye on it. We will have stationary cameras at our disposal, as well as on bus cameras, so cameras at the front of circulator buses. WMATA is also doing a pilot for on bus cameras to detect violations as well. So that will also be a possible resource. So we will be monitoring that and be ready to implement if needed.
Megan, thank you. We do have another question that's safety related for traffic operations. Are there any traffic calming measures beyond the curb bulb outs mentioned at just one intersection in order to reach vision zero and prevent speeding, running red lights, turning right on red without looking for pedestrians, etc.? I'd like to see extensive traffic calming measures implemented.
I could try and address that, Anne. Thank you for a good comment. I think that is a very good comment. That is something our team is working on, how we can incorporate different Vision Zero initiatives in the project with the acknowledgement that is a priority in the district and obviously just an important thing to do. So we are looking at some of those things. We'll have, leading pedestrian intervals at the traffic signals. We will look deeper into the turn on red restrictions and other items you mentioned and some more. So I would say we are aware of those items and are continuing to look into it.
Jerry, thank you. And there's a group of 3 questions that might be for you or another member of the project team. They are transit related. Is there an update with regards to the proposed dedicated bus lanes on 19th and 18th Streets?
Megan, you want to jump in?
Sure, thanks. And again, I'm Megan Carnegie. I'm the Mass Transit Branch Manager for Ddot, which includes our bus priority program. So this is 18th and 19th Streets is one of those north-south corridors that help buses get into the K Street Transitway, as well as to the H&I street bus lanes. So we are going to be initiating a bus priority project on 18th and 19th Streets. We're anticipating to be starting planning on that in 2023. We're going to make sure that the timing of that is in line with the K Street Transitway construction as well, to make sure that we have those in place as K Street is opening. Similarly, we have projects that are ongoing or upcoming for 11th Street and 13th Street Northwest, which are other key north-south connections for buses through downtown after they exit the transitway or as they make their way. So please stay tuned, and you can check our bus priority program website for more information on that timeline.
Megan, thank you. And I do want to point out, because I know the question's been asked before, but there are concerns about the ability to prevent cars from entering the bus lanes. No need to comment per se, because I know we've talked about it before, but I want you to know we're seeing a recurring theme about making sure safety is paramount with cars entering the bus lanes. We do have a question. It's actually 2 questions.
Before we move on, probably
yes.
Wayne can explain a little more about the approach to prevent any car entering the bus lane. Wayne, would you like to jump in?
Yes. Yeah, so the bus lanes to prevent cars from entering the bus lane, we are working on first educating the traveling public with red paint that Ddot has been utilizing for bus only lanes, as well as we are changing the geometry for the general travel lanes. So the general travel lanes are shifted over by the 11-foot median the 5-foot bike lane, and a 2-foot buffer. So in a sense, you have about 20 feet. So for a vehicle to actually enter the bus lanes, it will have to shift over literally 2 lanes to actually try to enter. So it's not an easy maneuver. So we're looking at hardscape geometry as well as paint and education and signage to prevent vehicles from entering the travel lane and not heavily only relying on enforcement. So we're trying to make it difficult for cars to enter the bus lanes.
Thank you. And that's what we can try at the engineering level from Ddot. Of course, we will continue to work with the MPD to find the best way to enforce the traffic to use the general travel lanes only. And we'll probably keep you guys updated.
Thank you, Hante. There is another question that's transit related. Which bus routes will use the transitway? Will any bus routes that are not currently on K be moved to K? And Alex goes on to say, I really like the new bus lanes on H and I streets, but will MATA move many bus routes, including 42, S2, X2, off those streets despite Ddot finally building great infrastructure for those routes? So specifically, which bus routes will be using the new transitway?
Sure, I'm happy to answer that question. We've been working very collaboratively with WMATA on kind of identifying, which routes make the most sense to be in the transitway, given that there's limited streets where you can turn onto and off of the transitway. We have to consider kind of, for routes that are going a little bit farther distance east-west, that might make more sense for them to be in the transitway versus ones that maybe could make better use of H or I street. This is also, I just wanted to say, kind of a foundational piece of the WMATA bus network redesign. They're currently in procurement for that. Their RFP was just released. So hopefully later this year, this will be getting started. There'll be extensive public engagement for that. But you'll start to see some of those changes that we've been working through in order to be ready for the transitway also be reflected in the bus network redesign there. So the routes that we are anticipating at this point that will be using the transitway include the circulator, the Union Station to Georgetown circulator, the WMATA 30s line, 32, 33, and 36, which are currently not on K Street, the D6, the 3F and 3Y, the 16Y, the G8, which is also not currently on K Street, the D6, short trips, excuse me. The S2 and S9 will be turning on and off for a couple of blocks, and I believe that rounds it out. As far as the decision about buses on H and I Street, there was a change in the downtown network with the implementation of Black Lives Matter Plaza, which did change some of the routing through downtown. So we've been working with WMATA to maintain service in that area, given some of the changes to the street network. But appreciate your appreciation of H&I Street bus lanes and the updated design that was put in by Ddot, and we are working to make sure that we are fully taking advantage of that piece of infrastructure. We're also in coordination with the commuter bus operators. There's many other bus providers that are coming in and using HI and K Street and making sure that we understand the best place for them under this future condition as well.
Megan, thank you for a comprehensive response. I hope that answers your question in its entirety. Again, if you have a follow-up question, please feel free to post it in the Q&A. There is a lighting question. Will there be any new lights installed in the median?
Yes. I guess the question is yes. New street lighting will be proposed for the entire corridor. We're proposing the twin 20 fixture, which is consistent with the downtown area. I think, yep, there you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. And we have a question, it might be for you, regarding the roadway. Will there be any physical hardening measures to prevent left turns? For example, extending barriers into the street. Just because left turns are banned doesn't mean drivers won't do it.
And I think that's another one of those good questions that we'll have to look into as we are advancing the design and seeing what we can do. Wayne, if you have anything to add, I don't know.
Yeah, that question kind of falls under enforcement and education as well. As well, we are trying to make that a vehicle turning left from the general traffic lane would have to cross 2 bus lanes and 2 bike lanes. So we're making it physically difficult for a vehicle to make a left turn, even though I agree you can't control what some drivers will do. But we will put as much signage and enforcement and pavement markings to kind of navigate the travelers through the corridor and not make left turns and cause those incidents.
Wayne, thank you. I do want to acknowledge that we're also getting great comments in the Q&A. I want the public to know we are capturing them. We will not be able to speak to all the comments, but we are definitely capturing them as part of the public's response and concerns about the project. We do have a detailed statement and question regarding the sidewalk. In regards to best practices, the plan as proposed does everything to discourage a pedestrian-friendly environment, as it would relocate high-speed vehicular traffic from the center of K Street, where is now 2 lanes directly next to the sidewalks. This will put pedestrians in extreme danger and discourage important curbside outdoor dining and commerce, as well as normal pedestrian activities. How is this not factored into the plan?
Yes. So with the constrained right-of-way we have and the goals of the project to actually implement a cycle track, a dedicated bus lanes, and also to maintain 4 lanes of traffic, 2 in each direction. It was necessary to not have an additional buffer. The options to create one wasn't available. So what are we doing to mitigate this concern is that we are creating the Amenity Zone, which is the 4-foot pavers, the 4x pavers next to the 10-foot pedestrian walkway. So we are trying to separate the travel lanes from the walkway by using bike lanes, using benches, using trees, or potentially bioretentions to kind of give that buffer from the general traffic lanes. So we understand that it's a big difference from having service lanes that K Street traditionally had. But in order to implement all these modes of traffic and accommodate the needs, the buffer for additional wider sidewalk just wasn't available. So we are in the goals of trying to maintain at 10 feet and as well as create the amenity zone to kind of give a sense and a buffer between the pedestrians and the travel and the vehicles.
Wayne, thank you. We're going to pivot momentarily back to the subject of bicycles and related concerns. I find turn boxes both confusing and scary on multi-lane streets. Oh, I'm sorry, this is just a comment, not a question, but I echo the comments of others that they need protection. A question, what will be the buffer spacing between the personal car lanes and the bike lanes? What will be the physical separation elements of the buffer? So we're hearing the continued concerns regarding the buffer.
Yeah, we'll definitely take a look at it. Right now it's at as you can see, it's about a 2-foot buffer, cement buffer. We can add bollards. I see that as a comment. I'm not sure if this is the same comment to the design. So that's some great feedback.
Another question possibly for you, Adrian, is how many bikers can fit in a turn box at a time?
So the 2-stage turn boxes vary by intersection, depending on how much space we had. So it just varies from 1 to 2. So it's not many bikers can fit in those turn boxes.
And another bicycling question is, will there be any bollards to protect cyclists in the cycle track from drivers? Additionally, this could help prevent drivers from impeding the bike lane when making U-turns, dropping people off, etc., like can happen on 15th Street?
Yes, we can definitely look into that. Right now, we're not showing the bollards, as you can see from the rendering shown on the screen, but that's something that we can add and we'll take into account.
Thank you. It's been brought to my attention, and please forgive me if your hands were raised for a period of time. I cannot see it on my end. So I'm just going to ask that first James Harnett be unmuted, and we ask you just to be mindful of your time in either your question or your comment.
Thank you so much. First of all, I want to just thank all the project team members for your great work here. I know this is a difficult task, and you seem to have done a very good job in getting us to where we are today. I hope we're able to move up the construction timeline from where it is now. The only question I have is if folks could talk a bit more about the terminus at 21st Street. I live in Foggy Bottom, and from what I understand, in its interaction with 22nd Street onto the ramp, either up to Washington Circle or down to the underpass under Washington Circle, it'd be helpful to understand a bit more of how that interaction is going to work, given that the project doesn't extend necessarily all the way to Washington Circle. Thank you.
I guess, Nick, can you maybe share slide 25? Perfect. And I guess, and maybe I'm not capturing the question. So the idea is, as you can see, the transit lanes will end. The buses will either, turn. They will have their own separate signal phase to go. So if they're coming out and turning left, or straight forward and right, and then for the general traffic, it will essentially return to its existing condition to the west of the intersection. Not sure if that answers or if there was something.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure there isn't, I mean, I would wish that there could be, but there won't be any changes to anything west of 21st Street.
The only slight, or go ahead, Ante, please.
Yeah, this is Hunter from Ddot. I think the Megan has a separate study being planned right now regarding the bus at the Washington Circle, right, Megan?
Yeah, we'll be, the K Street Transitway Project limits are here at 21st Street, but as a part of the bus priority program, we'll be looking at, other enhancements, particularly west, because there will be a couple of bus lanes that will be going around the circle. It is a tricky location, so there may be limited opportunities there to make improvements, but we'll be trying to look and make sure that we can make that transition as seamless as possible.
If there's no follow-up, I'd like to have Garrett Hennigan unmuted to ask his question or to pose make a comment.
Good evening. Thanks so much for the opportunity and for the presentation. Garrett Hennigan, I'm with the Washington Area Bicyclist Association, and glad to see all this coming together. 3 quick comments that I wanted to make. I think, as others have mentioned, but I want to emphasize it, 5 to 6 foot bike lanes are frankly too narrow for this. A 7-foot bike lane would allow people to pass each other if they're traveling at different speeds. It would allow people to bike next to each other, which would be critical. I understand that the street narrows quite a bit at some places, but having a 5-foot bike lane next to an 11-foot planted median, it is the wrong way to go. We should have a wider bike lane and a narrower planted median. Second, want to talk about intersections. As others have noticed, taking the left turn or the right turn into or out of these lanes is going to put you in the middle of a street in the middle of a painted box with no protection while traffic whizzes by, and all you get to do there is wait for the light to change. This should not be an unprotected space. This should be behind a curb. I know you'll say that there's no room for it, but there is. That would not limit left turns because they're not allowed. That would not limit cross traffic because these intersections are so wide. Let's find a way of putting those people waiting to make a turn in a protected, hardened space. That it is mandatory. And I would also say, you know, at 15th, at 21st, at 17th, where we have protected bike lanes that are crossing, where people will be making those transitions, we need a plan for more than 1 to 2 bicyclists. Let's talk about separate signal phases so that people on bikes can make that switch without, you know, putting 10 people, 15 people in the middle of the intersection, or 15 kids in the middle of the intersection. Let's be rational about this and plan something that doesn't rely on a promise of we'll have enforcement in the future. Let's get it right from the start. And the final thing, left turn hardening. You know, we know that people are going to try to do the wrong thing, so let's make it harder. Again, some of that left turn hardening could be accomplished by putting in protected turn queue spaces. Thanks so much for your work on this, and I look forward to following up in more detail. Thanks so much.
Garrett, we appreciate that. Thank you so much. We have captured your comments. I want you to be sure of that. There will be follow-up from the project team, and this is part of the design process. So the project team is taking all of this under consideration. So thank you. I want to next acknowledge James Lennox. If we could unmute James Lennox.
Hi, I just want to thank everyone so much for their work on this. I ride a bike quite a bit in DC, and K Street is my least favorite road to ride on. I avoid it at all costs, and I have loved what I've seen so far. My main question involves the sidewalks and the curb bump outs. I saw there were curb bump outs at one spot. I believe it was on the east end. But at several intersections on the south side of intersections throughout the transitway, I noticed that there were boxes with white lines, as if those white lines are going to stop cars from stopping there. So I had 2 questions. One, why aren't there curb bump outs where those white lines are? And 2, are there going to be bollards to protect that area where cars aren't supposed to be? I would personally love to see bike racks behind bollards as a way of daylighting the intersection if it is impossible to build curb bump outs there. And I just want to echo what the previous commenter said. I don't know if anyone at Ddot works with Andrew DeFrank, but I saw a video he posted on Twitter, I think yesterday or a couple days ago, about people using the 15th Street bike lane. And it's been swarmed with people this past weekend at Cherry Blossoms. So I am worried about the turn box only fitting 1 or 2 cyclists. I think the capacity, it would be very uncomfortable to have a mass of cyclists just sitting in the road there. And clearly they're popular. And I want to thank you all so much for your work on this. It's been great.
James, thank you so much for your comments and your questions. A member of the project team would like to respond to any of the questions.
Yes, I'll respond.
Sorry, Wayne.
Yeah, the bicycle layout that we have is it has a lot of challenges, and the comments that you're making, or the comments that has been made, is something that we will take a look at and go back and evaluate to see how we potentially accommodate cyclists being parked, like say, in a bike box between traffic, and how what protection measures we can accommodate. So we will get back. We will take the comments and investigate it and look at the constraints we have, the right of way we have, and see how we can offer better protection for cyclists. And we will work with our bicycle team to see how we can accomplish that.
Thank you, Wayne. Could we unmute Santiago, please?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to, well, first I'd like to thank the whole project team for putting this together, and I'd echo, honestly, what the rest of the speakers had raised before in terms of issues and comments. I understand there are a lot of competing uses in this corridor, but I'm really concerned that we're still prioritizing the speedy travel of cars through this rather than the safety of non-car options. I'm really, people mention bikes, but I think a big emphasis I'd bring is pedestrians. Taking away several feet of space for a sidewalk is, and putting that, and then further, that's even closer to speeding cars. I think it really affects the pedestrian experience and it makes it very difficult. This is an incredibly accessible area for public transit. I mean, there are 11 bus routes, 3 metro stations, and it seems like the perfect place in the entire District of Columbia to say you don't really need a car to access this area. So I don't know if anyone has suggested this before, but I would really suggest maybe taking away a lane of single occupancy vehicle traffic on maybe one side or both sides. I know we're pretty far into the design, but I think that that's a reasonable thing to suggest to allow for maintenance of sidewalk space for bicycle space as well. I think that would really be maybe that's a bigger picture suggestion. Maybe I'm thinking too big, but education and enforcement don't really work, and a car will still rev and go 60 on K Street, whether there are 6 lanes, 2 lanes, but if you make it 1 lane, it'll make a really big difference. And that's my point. Thank you.
Santiago, thank you. And again, we're capturing your comments and we're hearing the clear concerns for safety. And we're looking forward to providing you feedback in the coming months as we've heard the concerns and the project team continues to work through the design. We still have a few more questions to go through. The time now is 7:17. We're going to try to get through as many as possible with the intention of starting our closing at approximately 7:25. The next few questions are transit related. Can you clarify how many buses per lane per hour?
Go ahead, Megan.
Oh, that's okay. Sure. So the sort of max capacity is 55 to 60 buses per hour per direction. And so basically where we're at right now is that list of routes that I provided, given the service levels that WMATA has currently providing, looking at kind of where we're at in that. There may be some capacity potentially. We're going to be, as I mentioned, coordinating with those commuter bus operators to determine if it may make sense to allow some of them to enter the transitway, but we need to determine, given the way that they operate is a little bit different than the way a metro bus or circulator operates, whether that we still think that that's compatible. We also have near level boarding as part of the transitway, so a little bit higher curb height at the stops. And so that's something also to make sure that it's compatible with those motor coaches. So we're ensuring that we're getting the full value of that capacity. And I did note there was another question about who will be on H&I Street if the 30s line is shifted to K. And I just wanted to note one major route, the X line buses will be shifting to H&I Street. So they will be a major user of the H&I bus lanes.
Megan, thank you for the follow-up. That was going to be my next question. Can Ddot consider bus shelters with wind barriers perpendicular to the road? These shelters in the pictures do not protect against cold, wind, or rain, snow when it's windy.
I can probably jump in for that. We appreciate the comment, and it might be depending on which direction the wind may come, but the city has a specific contractor for the bus shelters throughout the city, and I'm talking about there are a little bit limited options at this time that we are still working to pursue different options of the bus shelters in the future, but at this moment, the option for the bus shelter is somewhat limited. But we appreciate your comment, and we will definitely bring this idea to our transit team for future consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Hunter. And staying with the theme of the bus stops, will there be benches? Will benches be installed near the bus stops?
I would say yes, the benches will be part of the shelters, so there will be benches there on the platforms.
Okay. Thank you, Jerry. And there's a question about a lovely amenity. Will there be public Wi-Fi installed as part of this project?
That is not part of the current project. I know there's other citywide projects going on. I don't know if anyone on Ddot can speak any more to that, but that is not part of the current project.
Yeah, so we have sent the project to Ddot. I know we are looking at investigate 5G, and there has been applications or permits for different cell companies to install 5G along the corridor. We have not received a request for that for this particular project, but we are, we will accommodate if that is requested.
Thank you, Wayne. We're going back to the subject of the roadway. Why are there fences around the median? What if cyclists get off the bus and want to directly go across the bike lane?
I think one of the primary benefits of those fences is to discourage people from trying to cross the travelway mid-block. So if you're trying to run to the platform or from the platform, I think from a walking pedestrian, that would not be a desirable thing. And I would think as such, the bikes will just have to go down to the end of the platform to access the bike lanes. If anyone has anything else to add, please.
And the railings serve as a guidance for anyone with low vision to help guide them to the bus stop, to the platform. So it is part of not just a protection from bikers just jumping into the bike lane, but it actually acts as a guidance or railing to guide low vision riders to the bus stations or the bus stops.
I just wanted to add that again, those platforms at the stops are going to be a little bit higher than a normal curb. A normal curb height is like 6 to 7 inches, and we're looking at maybe around 10 inches. So the railing is important to keep people from accidentally stepping back down into the bike lane and potentially injuring themselves. We'll have safe access points for people to get into and out of the stop areas.
Thank you all for that response. We're going to take 2 or 3 more questions. There's a question regarding construction. What is the updated estimated budget for this project?
I'll take that question. So the estimated budget for construction costs at this time is about 85 million. It's still flexible to change. Kind of as the team has mentioned, we are still looking to accommodate, incorporate, landscaping in the medians. We're still discussing the project utility companies for relocation. So we're still adjusting the estimate based on additional features that need to be included, as well as provisions for utility conflicts. But our rough estimate at this particular time is at 85 million.
Thank you, Wayne. And we have one final question for the evening. Is it possible that some commercial loading zones be changed to parklets to give more spaces for pedestrians and nearby restaurants?
I can answer that, or I know Haley, you're also on the phone if you'd like to answer. We definitely can take that comment into consideration. As I mentioned, the curbside uses are not final, so we'll talk internally as a team with that comment regarding parklets. Sorry, Wayne, would you like to add?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and as kind of like Adrian kind of mentioned earlier, with the changing conditions, there are a lot of streetlets or curbside being used as restaurants, and we understand that. So we are working with the bids, the community, and as well as permitting to see where those parklets are kind of being requested, to see how we can accommodate, the businesses or people, to try to make their way or survive during the current conditions we have. So we would like to receive input. If you have plans for streeteries or such or parklets, please share that with the team as we look to see how we can still accommodate your request in this business during this current time.
Wayne, thank you. Next slide, please. So when the meeting ends, you will be redirected to Ddot's Title VI Public Meeting Participant Questionnaire. The questionnaire is used by Ddot to ensure that we are informing the public and conducting our meetings in compliance with Title VI. The project comments and our concerns may also be submitted through this form. We appreciate your response. There will be a 30-day comment period to give community members a chance to submit any feedback about the project. You may submit your comments through the Title VI form or visit the project website or email the project team at K Street, that's KST-Transitway at jmt.com as it appears on your screen. That will also be placed in the chat. Before April 1 of next week, this evening's meeting recording will be posted on the project website and the Ddot YouTube channel for your review. The PowerPoint presentation from this evening will also be posted on the project website no later than the end of this week. We will also make sure to follow up on any unanswered questions that came in during the course of this evening's meeting. Next slide. We want to thank you for joining us for the presentation. Please complete the Title VI form that you will see upon completion of this presentation. Definitely take advantage of it as an opportunity to submit any project comments or concerns. This is not the end of our engagement. We'll have ongoing engagement with stakeholders in the community. In the meantime, you can reach out to the team with questions and comments via email and the project website. We thank you again on behalf of the K Street Transitway Project team. We thank you for your participation. We look forward to seeing you at future meetings. Take care and be well.